Hoya, seya, nahi, heya, hoya, ya, I see you, and in you I see me. Welcome to the show today. This is Stasia Bliss, Bliss in the House. Today's show is called Redefining Relationship, Seeing the Other as the Self. So go ahead and post this up. Let everyone know to join me now. Redefining relationship. Relationship is a big topic all the time. And I'm just going to jump right into it. Much of what I'm talking about today is coming from one of my recent books, Redefining Relationship. And it is available on my website, blissinthehouse.com. and as well as Amazon.com. It's Redefining Relationship, a new paradigm for evolved interaction, intimacy, and self-at-one-ment. And it's really what it is. What it really comes down to is realizing that we are all connected, that there is really just one here. You know, we are raised in this world, in this culture and society, wherever we are, to believe in separation. As much as our religious or spiritual beliefs might bring us to this idea of unity and oneness, we still largely treat one another as, quote, separate individuals, and have a tendency to blame the other, someone outside of ourselves, for things going wrong, especially in relationship, as we tend to continue to look for, quote, the perfect partner out there, when the truth is, it's really about what's going on in the inner realm. And this is the biggest secret that I've found out in all my years of dating and relationship, marriage, divorce, having children. And you know, as I saw it, and it's funny because for me this is really the biggest lesson, the biggest thing that I feel like I came to this planet for. And if you look at my astrology chart, you'll see like almost every planet of mine packed in the house of relationship. And what that means to me, and what that might mean to you, giving some credibility to this podcast, is it's really been the focus of my life mission to look at this realm of relationship, what it means, how to access it in the most enlightened way, and to really make it work, to find an evolved way of interacting, an evolved way of experiencing intimacy, and really a way to find at-one-ment, not only within myself, but with all of the, quote, other that seem to be outside of myself. So, you know, one of my mentors, if you don't know me, is Almeen, and she is a woman that I feel has brought great works into this planet. Some of her quotes have touched me deeply, and she has originally brought me to this idea of other relationships being just self-relationship. And so at the bottom of my book, there runs the line, the only relationship is self-relationship. And that really is what it all boils down to. This is a quote by her that really I love. Only the most profane dare to enter the temple of relationship with anything other than profound reverence. You see, the way we perceive relationship directly relates to how we experience everything. And you know, relationship, how we handle it or do not handle it, says a lot about what's going on inside of us. Because, you know, it really is a lot easier to go through this reality alone, just by ourselves, even alone with children. Because relationship is such an intimate experience that it's bound to mirror back to us those issues that we have buried, that we have not fully addressed, that need addressing. And it is the purpose of relationship to bring those things out to the surface, to be cleared and cleansed so that we might express at our highest potential. So, when we enter relationship, many of us are under the impression from the movies, the Hollywood and fairy tale stories, that this person, this other that we see, is going to somehow be this, shining knight or this beautiful princess, and everything's going to be peachy and perfect, and anything that's arguments or disagreements or, quote, pain and suffering is undesirable and therefore must mean that the relationship is somehow flawed and we should perhaps move on to find the better. I myself have thought this and done this time and again over the years since, I first started into relationship. And, I still see it today in the people that I love and admire. And, there really isn't a whole lot I can say in the moment of asking the question, because it really has to be something that we come to an understanding within ourselves. But I can give you some guidance based on my experience, based on the realization, the profound realization that I've had of this idea of oneness. And many of you are familiar with this idea of the other being a reflection of the self, but let's really get into this here. So, oneness. Let's have a little quick lesson on this, and this is part of the book as well, Redefining Relationships. If there's only one, imagine before anything else was here that there is just consciousness. Now, this might rub you with a different religious beliefs, but stay with me and morph the words, the languaging as best you can if it doesn't fit your particular beliefs, and find how it does, because I know I've been able to morph this understanding to fit various religious beliefs. But imagine the one, okay, the source, the universe, the one pervading consciousness energy that covers everything. Okay, before anything was manifest and formed, there was just this oneness, just this energy that pervaded all. And I just call it the one, or the one life, as I've heard Almin refer to it. So in this one life, there is this thought of experiencing itself. And so, you might think of it as a God being deciding to experience itself by having children. Children is another way of saying progeny, or multiplying out into various parts. So I imagine it like the oneness deciding to experience itself, myself, yourself, as the many, one experiencing as the many. So in that experience of one becoming the many, oneness separated itself out, seemed to separate itself out in order to have the experience of what it's like to not be just one, to not just know everything, be everything, have all sensation, but instead feel what it feels like, experience what it feels like to be all these different forms and thoughts and relations. So in this idea, in this example, you and I are merely aspects of the one. We are the same in essence. It's just that we are different perspectives. We are different outpourings, outpicturings of the one. And so we have unique perspectives and looks, appearances, thoughts that are all part of the one. Now, each one of us individually doesn't necessarily contain all that there is, and yet we are, by this idea of micro and macrocosm containing the all, holographically speaking, we do contain all within ourselves, just like you can find, even in the smallest cell, some mirroring of the cosmos that, we are choosing to express as we are, because that is our unique mission, our unique purpose for being in this embodiment. But coming back to relationship, as we approach an other, as we feel an attraction, and I talked about this last week with the Create Your Life book, as we feel this attraction to another, there is something about the two coming together to reveal a deeper level. Okay, so if you have this one that split itself out into billions of pieces, and two of those parts come back together, there is a larger completion, right? There's a more complete feeling in the two parts coming together than just one reflecting back to itself, in thought, in action. So the two is like two mirrors coming together. Imagine the example of a mirror shattering into all these pieces and then starting to come back together. Two parts come back together. So you have these two reflections. So when thinking it like this, then when problems arise or things come up that push our buttons, rather than thinking that something is wrong, this is actually a signal that something is right. Something, thank goodness that we have created the space, whereas to clear all the things which are not harmonious within us so that we can see more clearly who we are. So think of it as the other coming to alchemically clear and cleanse ourself. And it's an agreement that we've made with another. And it's not another being that's separate, it's another aspect of self. So we've agreed on some level that when two parts of ourselves come back together, that we go through a healing. And part of that healing is just that we think that we're separate from the oneness. There's a deep wound that has occurred within our being, a sadness, if you will, that longs for the remembrance of who we really are. This longs for the remembrance of the oneness. And so we have to remember that in each embodiment, each perspective, there is a deep wound that has occurred. Some might call this the fall. Some might call this the original sin. But it's a sin, if you like to call it that way, to forget oneness, to forget unity. And as we remember who we are, bring the members of the oneness back together as we come together in relationship and relate to one another, we are healing that deep core separation. And so, there's going to be some difficulty, some injury, because we haven't all gladly accepted this experience of separation. On a deep core level, sure, we wanted to do this. We created this experience for, fun, if you want to say. Men are that they might have joy. Women are that they might have joy. The oneness wished to experience itself joyfully. So, but the experience in itself created a veil, because you can't play the game without forgetting. So in the veil of separation, in the fog of forgetfulness, there was a psychic wound, if you will. And so as we are raised in families, as a mother becomes pregnant with this further outpouring of self, as we expand our consciousness into more areas of embodiment, we start this idea of separation there. We start the idea that there's an us and them, that this other is being born and they're separate from us. And so then we are raised and everyone agrees that this other is another person. They are separate, they have their own thoughts, they are unique, and we perpetuate this idea of separation consciousness. And so when we become old enough to relate to another in a relationship, then we have perpetuated this idea of separation. And so when our stuff comes up, because it will, as it's magnified and mirrored back to us by another aspect of ourself, we become ruffled a bit. Perhaps there is some jealousy or some anger or some, other issues that arise. And what do? Instead of being grateful that those things are coming up and out so we don't have to carry them anymore, we instead oftentimes become upset that those things should not be brought up, that we should be treated a different way. And if we aren't treated a different way, then we think that perhaps the relationship is flawed and we should leave it. So I think here's where the healing occurs. Here is where we get to make a new choice. Because I sincerely and honestly believe that we attract people into our reality. We have that attraction that we sincerely are able to clear these things with. and that is the attraction. There is a magnetic pull that says, yes, something in the magnetism can clear these deep issues so that we can more fully realize and remember who we are. And this is true for both parties. So as the things arise, there should be an excitement, perhaps, a gratitude. So we need to shift the consciousness, the awareness around this, and realize that if stuff is coming up for us, rather than hiding from it or retreating from it, to go into it, to go into the fire, let ourselves be baptized by the alchemical fire of relationship and transmute those things that have been deep wounds of separation within us and come more fully into oneness. So this is interesting because when someone is doing this, and I'm finding as I'm doing this in relationship, it seems to look to other people as if there's something wrong, that perhaps there is an abusive thing going on. And I've even observed this in others as I see them going through the alchemical fire of relationship and they share what's going on. I think, oh, that doesn't really sound very harmonious and good. Are you sure you're not in some kind of a abusive situation? And then I have to check back in. Okay, these people are conscious individuals. I don't think they would stay in a place that they didn't feel like was beneficial to them. And the same I feel for myself. You know, sometimes we do get caught in unconscious relationships and there is something that's coming up that is really less than positive, and it can look like an abusive situation. It can feel like an abusive situation, and maybe it is an abusive situation if both parties are not willing to become conscious about what's happening and work through. But there's a difference between conscious individuals who can see the issues that are coming up, who are willing to address them and move through them, and those who are in relationship and not willing to do these things. So yes, with that, I hear in the background the other, which is a child aspect of myself crying out from a sleep time, and I'm feeling that call is asking me to move and check on what's going on. So in order to do that, I am going to add, let's see, a little song to allow me to take a short break here, and hopefully this is going to, hopefully I know how to do this properly, but I want to allow you to soak in what I've said so far, to breathe in this idea that the other is the self, and the self is asking for a healing by drawing in a relationship. So I'm going to play a song by my dear soul sister. I don't believe that she'll mind, Tara Abundance, singing One. And I've played a little clippet of this before in one of my other shows, but not in its entirety. So I'm going to do that and check on this wee one. And while you're listening to this tune, I want you to think about if you're in a relationship or not. If you're in a relationship, think about how that other in your relationship is showing you things about yourself, trigger points. And if you are not in a relationship, you are still in a relationship with yourself. So I want you to think about how maybe you're longing for the other, and that by looking at yourself as the only one, that those things within you that are not harmonious, that are not in balance, perhaps need to be brought into balance before the manifestation on the external plane can come into play. So for some reason this is taking a while to upload here. So let's take a deep breath together. See if I can get this to go. The words here are, I am one, you are one, we are one. And it's so true. There is just one. Okay, so part of the other part of myself that I call my mother, she has stepped in to help my child self. So now I am free to continue the show here. And if this music pops up, I'll go ahead and play it. But that was beautiful how that just happened. In the oneness, there was a cry. And it was a cry from the child self, which was an outpicturing of my actual child. Something in me needed assistance, and the part of me that is nurturing, that is caring and loving, stepped in to provide. This is a quote from my book, again from, let's see, again from Almeen, and I can find it here. How I start off the book: we awakened to our oneness, only to find the joy of relationship made it desirable to pretend we were separate yet again. So this speaks to what I'm talking about. The joy of relationship made it desirable to pretend we were separate, but we are awakened to our oneness. So as we awaken to oneness, some people think, well, then we're not going to be separate anymore. We're going to merge back into the one. But no, in the remembrance of oneness, we get to experience relationship at a whole nother level, at a level that is true unity with consciousness. And so as we approach the temple of relationship, and let's start with one not being there. Let's say we desire relationship. And as I mentioned before, we would first realize that we are the one, that we are the only one. And Tara's song still is not loading, so hopefully we'll get it by the end here. But when we realize that we are the only one, then why are we not seeing a reflection in front of us of another? Well, maybe we haven't fully embraced that masculine, feminine within ourselves, that wholeness within ourselves, and we're seeking to find completion outside of ourselves, when first we really must feel whole within, so that we might draw to us a reflection of what we're feeling inside. So now say we are in relationship, and say that there's something coming up for this, and I address this in the book. I'm going to go into it now. Once again, my book, Redefining Relationships, available on blissinthehouse.com and on Amazon. So say we're in a relationship with someone and something is coming up. Let's say we're feeling that they are not truly seeing us, that they are not truly hearing us. There's a level at which we're feeling ignored or unappreciated. Okay, so rather than, making this their problem, because remember, they are just showing us stuff that we are still working on. So we go, okay, well, thank you for showing me that I still need to work on self-appreciation. So I give this example in the book. There is the psychologist who was called into a psych ward, I believe it was in Hawaii, that where the patients were going crazy and no one could keep doctors there. It was just out of hand. And this doctor went into the office with all of the files of all of the patients and took each one and looked at each one and saw where the issues they were having was inside of himself. So instead of meeting with the patients, he did self-examination, meditated on those areas, did the practice of Ho'oponopono, basically a self-healing practice to fill himself with the remembrance of oneness in each of the areas that were being expressed as, dis-ease. So as he did this, over time, one by one, all the patients were healed and released from the hospital, and over time the hospital closed down. So I bring this up right there because as we take it upon ourselves and become responsible in our relationships for what we're seeing, even if it feels like very inharmonious, we look at it as ourself that's being outpictured, something we get a chance to heal, to feel closer to the one, to feel more unity. So we breathe into that, say, thank you for allowing me to find this place that I need to feel more appreciation for self, going in and healing that, sending love, awareness into the core of our being. And we get to see as we do this that the outpicturing, that the other actually shifts. And this happens every time. Shifts to reflect that which we're feeling inside. So I'm going to go ahead and play this song for you now. Listen up. I love you, Terabundance. Thank you for the beautiful song. Thank you all for joining me here today for the show, Redefining Relationships. You can read more about this topic in my book by the same title. Find it on blissinthehouse.com or on amazon.com. This is Stasia Bliss. Thank you for joining me today. Bliss in the House. Follow my blog. You can also find that through my website, and I hope to catch you next time. You are beautiful, and we are one. Thank you for being here today. Ayana na yana, hoya. Hey, na na na